Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Taylor Combaluzier, a mining analyst at McLeod Securities. Today's webinar features Blackwolf Copper and Gold Limited, which is a mineral exploration and development company that's focused on base and precious metals projects located in Alaska and British Columbia. Blackwolf's main asset is its 100% interest in the advanced exploration stage Niblack project located on Prince of Wales Island in southeast Alaska, which hosts a 43101 compliant resource estimate comprising 5.6 million tons of indicated and 3.4 million tons of inferred copper, gold, zinc, and silver resources. Today I have with me on the webinar Robert McLeod, who's the president, CEO, and director, as well as Jody Gibson, who's the vice president of exploration at Blackwolf. The format of today's webinar will be comprised of two parts. In the first part, Rob and Jody will provide an introduction to Blackwolf, and then in the second part, we'll take your questions live. So please send them in using the chat function, and we'll get to as many as we can. We'll note that you can type them into the chat box at any point throughout the presentation. To start off, we'll handle the disclosures and then get into the presentation. So for Blackwolf, Copper and Gold, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the Blackwolf corporate presentation located on the company's website. For McLeod Securities Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our most recent research located on our website for Blackwolf specific disclosures. So with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to Rob and Jody to introduce you to Blackwolf and what you have to look forward to with this story.
Well, thank you, Taylor, and must say it's a pleasure to be working with Red Cloud again. With my previous company, IDM Mining, we did some great things when Red Cloud was just launching. It used to be Red Cloud Klondike Strike. And I'm certainly grateful for all of you for attending today. Just a little bit of a background on myself. So I'm a third-generation miner from Stewart, British Columbia. So I grew up in the Golden Triangle. I'm a geologist by training, with over 25 years of experience now, working primarily actually in Alaska, northwestern BC, the Yukon, and Nevada, specializing in numerous different commodities and being involved with numerous M&A transactions and making discoveries and raising a lot of money over the years. Maybe I'll turn it over to Jody, where you can give yourself an introduction, Jody.
Thanks, Rob. Well, and where Rob grew up as a miner, I grew up as a prospector in the southeast U.S., but am a geologist by training as well, and first came up to Vancouver 15 years ago when Rob recruited me of all things on MySpace. I worked with him in Alaska and the Yukon, most notably as project manager for the Underworld project that sold to Kinross, and then worked in the industry, various other groups, but most recently joined back up with Rob and the group here, and back working in Alaska.
All right. Well, let's get into the company specifics here, and hey, to state the absolute blatantly obvious, it's been rough markets. Why should you be looking at Blackwolf as a potential investment at this time? And there's a series of reasons and catalysts that we'll obviously be getting through in our presentation. Our value is really underpinned by the advanced stage polymetallic VMS deposit at Niblack, which we're currently updating a resource for. Based on the 2011 estimate, there's 5.6 million tons of potentially bulk mineable indicated resources and 3.4 million tons of inferred, of which copper and gold are the two most important commodities. So we'll be taking you through that, and certainly that resource estimate, which includes additional rounds of drilling afterwards, 3 substantial ones that we look forward to rolling out. Secondly is we have a good share structure with a little under 40 million shares outstanding, over 50 fully diluted. some very good institutional shareholders, retail shareholders, and significant management skin in the game. I'll put, Jody and I are no slouches when it comes to geology, but I also, for our whole team, I'll put it against any other one that's operating in the Golden Triangle in terms of deliverables and experience. So we certainly have the local connections, and we'll be taking you through a few of them as we're talking about our Hyder area properties and Niblack. What I believe could be our biggest catalyst coming up, and certainly one of the best undrilled targets I've ever seen in my career, there are our new Cantoo project, which is located right next to the Canadian border in Alaska, adjacent to Ascot's premier development project. But then, I believe all companies, you want to have an exit at some stage. And we believe that our ultimate vision, which is for a hub and spoke that would include not only Niblack, but other projects in Southeast Alaska, Northwest BC, with a hub and spoke type vision, is where we could get the ultimate value, short of making a new discovery. So, and hey, it's these discoveries that actually the company has been delivering over the past couple of years at Niblack, as part of a new geological interpretation that we'll discuss. We delivered very high grade copper numbers as well as bulk mineable copper gold. And on surface, we're calling them discoveries, but it's basically going back to some areas that pioneer miners and prospectors looked at in the 1920s and 30s, where there's been basically no modern exploration since that time, where we've been finding some great values. And that's really, as we all know, is what moves junior markets. But back to our share structure, insiders and close advisors to the company have a little over 17%. Please pay attention to our two largest institutional shareholders, Delbrook Capital, which is the largest manager of mining money in Vancouver here, own 9.9%. Crescat within a couple of different funds actually have 11.8%. We work out of the Fiore office, which is led by Frank Gistra, and his trust owns 3.3%, as well as we have a bunch of other really good institutional holders listed down below. Also, again, great team and board of directors. Please go to our website to learn a little bit more about the rest of the team. So we're going a bit into the technical side. So maybe I'll turn it over to Jody to talk about the properties and project locations, and we're going to back and forth a little bit in terms of some of the geology and history for these.
Thanks, Rob. Well, it's we'll zoom right in so you can see our Niblack and our Hyder properties. We're both located in Southeast Alaska. The Niblack is on Prince of Wales Island. We'll give a bit of background on that a bit later, but historic mining site, modern exploration, started up in the 1980s and has existing infrastructure and resources on it that we're in the process of updating. But in the near term, and one of the things that we're most excited about are our Hyder properties. So those are nestled right up against the BC Alaskan border, and is an extension of the Golden Triangle geology. So we see the same type of alteration, mineralization, lithologies on that side. And maybe let Rob jump back in here to give a bit of the history of how we got interested in Hyder to start with.
Oh yeah, and it's where behind every great discovery is there's I believe a great story, and this all started kind of during the height of COVID, and we're all working from home. And I happened to be going through, my dad, who used to be a underground miner, as was my uncle, and my uncle ended up becoming a promoter. And my dad got into the hotel and bar business, but was long a collector of mining memorabilia and history from this part of the world. And there was a story that I had never heard. And it was about, and we'll show you a couple of slides and examples of these, there's no better word than to describe crazy and ambitious pioneer miners that were looking for the source of very, very high grade veins next to a glacier. Now, the Golden Triangle has, and I'll challenge any other geologist that wants to challenge this, has the richest ore bodies, at least in North America. SK Creek, the real high grades at Bruce Jack, the early years at Premier, known for very high grade, mostly gold and silver. And so these old timers knew that based on the operating Premier mine that was nearby, chasing and mining through glacier ice, looking for the source of that vein. Talk about, and if you go to our website under the history section, you'll see there's that where it says Alaska Sportsman Magazine. It tells the story of these men that, you see that little cabin there, they would open up the back door and they would go under the ice looking for the source of those very, very high grade veins. And they did this for years and years and years, actually, well, almost 10 years. And eventually these old timers found a tension vein, a narrow vein. And these are some of the types of really high grade mines that Newcrest is currently mining at Bruce Jack. And they recovered 330 ounces of gold. Like, do the math. That's a lot of gold from 700 pounds of quartz. And then they got out of there. So you see that little photo on the left there? That's where these guys were mining through the glacier. And to state the obvious, that ice is mostly long gone. And so last year we went out, actually, if you look at the far photo, there's still a lot of snow in 2021, and there's still snow up there this year, but we believe we will be finding the source. So this got us into the area. We got some very good numbers, and 10 grams of gold, over 7,000 grams per ton silver in these style of tension veins. But this is what the Golden Triangle is really, really known for, is these really, really high-grade vein structures. Hand it back over to Jody to talk about our portfolio of 5 properties, including one in BC here.
Exactly. Well, it's so we currently have five distinct kind of claim areas in this corner of the Golden Triangle. So for reference, this is approximately the BC Alaskan border. So we have 5 or 4 projects on the Alaskan side, and then recently staked one just north of the border there between Alaska and the Grand Duke deposit. As Rob mentioned, lots of historic exploration in this area, as prospects, adits, everything else all over the place. And what's unique is when you look at the number of active and historic deposits and mines on the Canadian side, including the big Missouri silver coin Premier that Ascot's developing, Scotty Gold's actively working just to the north, and obviously north of that you have Bruce Jack. But strange as it may seem, geology doesn't stop at international borders, and for whatever reason, no one has really done any work since the 30s on the Alaskan side. But what we're seeing on the ground is reflections of the same geology, same trends, same style of alteration and mineralization. Let me clear that. Looking a bit closer at the claims themselves and just some highlights, I'll start with Texas Creek there. We picked these up last summer and did a small program on them, and these are highlights of some of the rock samples. So the Solo area, that's where the cabin Rob was showing, where the historic miners had tunneled into the glacier. Well, that glacier's long since gone, and following up on that, we're finding rocks up to 10 grams per ton, gold, 7,900 grams silver, and 1.4% zinc. Variety of other targets. One of the most exciting is this dog hole area. To the south of that, we have the Casey, historic samples, full of gold, silver, and up to 29% zinc. This one the crew hadn't got to last year, but we've recently executed a surface program and have a whole pile of samples from this area. Recently staked the Rooster claims to the north, so this is immediately south of the Grand Duke mine. And then I'd say the one in the near term that we're most excited about is this Cantoo property that's sitting here right on the border and immediately across from Premier. Zooming in to take a closer look at Cantoo. We kind of have two projects there. We have Cantoo to the north, and one we staked this past spring named Mineral Hill to the south. So looking at Cantoo, and what initially got us interested was looking through those historic reports, and you have an old prospect on these cliffs called Cantoo. There were historic tram lines up to it, adits in the side of the hill, and quite high-grade historic production numbers coming from it. In historic U.S. reports, you're seeing 27 grams gold, 135 grams silver, 18 grams gold, 1,200 grams silver. And so we wanted to take a closer look and see what was going on here. So whenever we went out site the first time and flew over it in helicopters, you're looking in these historic reports and they're describing quartz veins up to 100-foot wide or 30 meters. And we didn't believe it until you actually flew over it, and you can see these things outcropping and the historic workings in them. And they had just never seen any work, even though on the other side of the border and across the Salmon River is Premier. And so, we see sampled extensive float material just below the projections of these veins. So you have two, possibly a third that we have identified. The upper one tends to be a bit more gold rich, where the lower one's a bit more silver rich. And this is very similar geologically to what you see on the Canadian side at Premier. Taking a bit of a different angle in some recent photos. As mentioned, the upper gold rich vein, the lower silver rich vein, and then during this year's work, we've identified what looks like a potentially third vein in between. You can kind of see in this area, my highlighter's not working. There we go. In this area right here, that's quartz veining outcropping, and has never been sampled before. So we've done quite a bit of geology work sampling in this area, and the next step is to get some drill rigs on top of it and start poking holes. Taking a bit of look at the geology, this would be where the historic adits are, and veins are coming to surface and projecting into the hill. The extensive mineralized float below it, and likely other subparallel vein sets that we haven't identified yet. So as Rob likes to say, it's the best undrilled target he's ever seen. I would agree. And we're quite excited to get out here and potentially make a new discovery. Anything else to add on your end, Rob?
Yeah, and particular if we have some people on the line here that have been following the company for a while, we have been waiting for from the U.S. Department of the Interior for drilling permits, and what has been the holdup is from in the United States. If there are mining workings that are over 50 years old, they do need to be assessed and viewed and incorporated into the plan of operations. You're not allowed to, disturb them and that sort of stuff. So the last thing that the department is waiting for is the go ahead from that heritage department, that if we have a professional archaeologist on site to make sure that we wouldn't disturb any heritage stuff, such as the old tram lines, which we can still see hanging up there, with our drill pads or drill sites, then we would be able to go ahead. So we're hoping that, maybe as soon as today or tomorrow, that we will get some preliminary approval. And Jody's certainly been on the phone with them any day. Anything to add on that permitting side, Jody?
They're just waiting on the thumbs up from the archaeologist, and as soon as they get that, we'll release the permit immediately.
So pay attention for that press release, and we think that could be a catalyst, because there has been concern that we wouldn't get it this season. So, but we're very, very optimistic it's imminent. And you can drill until October here. Okay. So And please, if you have any further questions, again, Cantoo is like, it's pretty rare to see these type of opportunities. I used to work at the Premier Mine back when I was a university student, worked in the mill actually, and worked in that whole area. I had no idea that these veins were here. I'd driven past that mountain 100 times, and nor did anybody else. Why didn't anybody do anything with it? Well, it's outcropping on a cliff. And if it wasn't for that, one of the old maps that you saw at the beginning that was given to me by an old timer that grew up in Hyder, it used to be in the Hyder bar, actually, in behind some place. You could even still smell the smoke on that old map. Is that somebody else would have looked at it? It's pretty steep, and hey, those big outcropping quartz veins, we have that, the thing that the old timers didn't have, a helicopter. So it's a very, very enticing target, but there are also in the Hyder area properties numerous other targets that we like. So we're going to switch gears over to Niblack, and and this could factor into the work that we're doing at Hyder, or other companies in the area like Dolly Varden or Goliath, or some other companies that are in the Constantine that are in Southeast Alaska. Is that I do believe there is a vision that could really work on many of these, to be honest, stranded assets. Like Niblack is great. It's on tidewater. It's got a good, by Alaska and Northern BC standards, you couldn't ask for a better location. But there's no power there. There's no roads. There's no workers. So you need to transport the ore somehow to a place where you can process it. And so there are a couple of sites, one in Alaska. There's even some sites in Canada that we've been in discussions with, where we believe it would be more expeditious and certainly better for the environment to have one mill and one tailings facility. So is this our vision to pursue now? Well, we want to set the framework for it, but ultimately, in terms of what could our exit be, where would somebody want to come and acquire this company? Well, get this on a path to be a polymetallic producer. And there's already substantial resources at Niblack. And what really makes the economics sing is if you can combine it with another one. Like, it's something, our example is actually how Boliden operates in Scandinavia, where, they have VMS deposits that combine with the gold quartz vein. And that's how semi-autogenous grinding was started. So that's where we want to be. But let's talk about the asset today. So Niblack, there it is, located on tidewater. It's a whole series of different deposits along since it's a VMS system, good prospective host rocks, rhyolitic volcanic clastics. There's the past producing mine right on tidewater where we had a bunch of success. The biggest deposit is Lookout. Second biggest is Trio. Dam is one of the best exploration targets. But what changed from the last round of drilling to when we took over was it was actually full credit to a master's student that, through precise radiometric age dates, found that the whole folded sequence of rocks, including the deposits, were overturned. And so, since it was folded, areas that were thought to be closed are in fact open, and does go the other way too. But where we confirmed by drilling an area that was thought to be a synform, in fact it was an aniform, we showed that, the other way around, that in fact it was wide open for expansion. So geologically, this is the best, and it's a global analog. And yes, I do know it's on the other side of the world. Is, if many of you are familiar with Nevsun, the Bisha deposit in Eritrea, there's very similar chemistry. So we take that whole scientific approach and what works with other VMS deposits for making discoveries. We believe that there's potential to find lots more resources here within this now overturned system. Jody, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us an update on how the resource modeling is going.
Excellent. Well, it's we do have a current resource, but granted that's from 2010. But we are actively updating that. So there's been 3 rounds of drilling since the historic resource, one in 2011, and then 2 more recently by Blackwolf. So, as you can appreciate, this is a large project, lots of exploration, over 450 holes, different targets. So it's been quite a long process to audit and validate the database, get it up to current 43101 standards. But we're through all that, actively modeling now. So are expecting to have that resource out sometime early this fall.
All right. Yeah. QP has completed the site exam, and so that's all very active. Also, and you can go to our website for more info on it. It's very good metallurgy at Niblack. Since it's been metamorphosed, it's nice coarse sulfides, very, very low in deleterious elements, and particularly good recoveries in the 90% for mid 90s for copper, a little less, kind of low 90s for zinc. Gold and silver are in the 70s, and that's an area where we would like to improve. So recent drilling, and within these VMS systems, you can get, a variety of different styles of mineralization. At the old Niblack mine area, where we will have our initial resource estimate, it's what's called exhalative. So it's where you get these black smokers on the ancient ocean floor, and it can often be higher grade, but maybe a bit narrower than the replacement style that you get at Lookout. So, highlight hole would be 7.6 meters of over 10% copper equivalent, most of that in copper, but also some good precious metal content. Now at Lookout, where we're drilling from underground, this is underground bulk mineable. It's a great ore body. Like, it's over 120 meters thick at its widest. So that should be amenable to low cost bulk underground mining techniques. We get sort of these are kind of average intercepts, 27 plus meters of over 1% copper and a little under 2 grams gold with good zinc and silver credits. And it's open. Those are areas where we believe it can grow. Jody, going to turn it back to you in terms of exploration targets.
Excellent. So most of the work to date has been done on this Lookout and Trio area. So that's where the current resource is. For the updated resource, that'll be an update to Lookout, Trio, and then adding in the historic Niblack area. But as you can see, there are multiple other targets with little to no drill testing on some of them, despite exciting results. And so what you see in red is what our drill plan is. We have received that permit that is in place. But then there's also, here's a closer look at Lookout and Trio itself. And one of the most exciting things about those is the bulk of the resources in the Lookout. That also includes a high-grade core within it. But both of these deposits are open along strike and at depth, and our most recent drilling demonstrates that, such as hole 151 here, that's 77.6 meters at just over a gram gold and nearly 1% copper, and it's on the very edge of the system. So that's open along strike at depth. So both these deposits are open to expansion. What you see in blue here is actually the underground portal. So that was put in 2007, 2008, I believe, Rob?
Correct. Yep.
And so
full production size, what it costs millions and millions of dollars to build today.
So we already have that existing infrastructure. So it's ready to go.
One of the actual challenges from the underground workings is it has been drilled almost as far as you can from the current underground working. So that's where, our next rounds of drilling, we can drill from underground. You can drill year round here, is to do some more drilling from surface. And if it's showing particularly the big, wide and high grade areas of the high grade core, there's an example where it's still open, 5 meters at 8 grams gold and 4% copper. If it's still going, it would probably necessitate additional underground development to continue to grow the resource. So, I think that's got us to the end of the geology section. So, just to summarize kind of the bigger picture, why should you look at Blackwolf? We're underpinned by already a substantial development stage asset at Niblack. But the near-term catalysts, which include this really, really exciting gold-silver vein target in the Golden Triangle area is something that could really, really re-rate us. We have excellent share structure. We've got a technical team that is I would put against any other that's operating in the area, and certainly with my background in history, and Jody's skill set and accomplishments over his career, is that we are the team to be able to execute discoveries in this area. Other catalysts such as the resource estimate coming up, the permitting being one of the nearest term, and having, it is important to have a pipeline not only at Niblack, where we do believe there's lots of targets to drill, but in the Hyder area to be thinking about what could be next. So we think there's a ton of value here. We've drifted lower like many of the other companies out there. It's tough markets for sure, but I think in terms of where we should be, we've got a lot of upside within this company. So, Jody, anything else you'd like to add in terms of closing statements here?
Well, I think you knocked it out of the park. As far as the exploration team goes, we're just sitting on the edge of our seat, waiting on those Hyder permits so we can pull the trigger and get to drilling.
And we have been doing surface exploration work and sampling and prospecting, that sort of stuff. We're fully permitted to be able to do that. It's that catalyst to drill. It's the best undrilled target I've seen in my career. So with that, I think that's the end of our presentation. We thank you for everybody's attention here. Maybe hand it over to Red Cloud for next steps.
Great. Thank you very much, Rob and Jody, for that great presentation. So we'll turn to the Q&A portion of the webinar now. Just a reminder to everybody on the line that you can type in your questions into the chat box, and we'll get to them now. So first up, just a follow-up question we have here on the permitting. When will the last date you have to make a decision to forego waiting for the permit and start drilling at Niblack?
It's probably around now. And so, if, hey, it is in government's hands, and government can, we were told early July, we're on the phone with them every day, and we do think it's imminent, but it's, like if next week we're still waiting, we have contractors and stuff like that have to be notified. It's already pushing the season. So it is right around now. If that's not, if it's not going to happen, and we can turn our attention to the numerous drilled targets at Niblack.
Okay, great. And maybe just in case some people aren't familiar, could you just give a kind of high level background on what's required for permits in Alaska here?
Jody, do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, well, it's both the Niblack and the Hyder projects are on U.S. federal land, so it's under the Forest Service, but it's basically the same regulations as what you'd go through federal lands anywhere else, be it Nevada, Oregon, any of those. So you have biology, you have archaeology, and it's all boils down to ground disturbance and things of that nature. One of the challenges, particularly in this part of the world and in Alaska, is it's remote, and the Juneau office covers a large area, so they have a limited staff and a lot to deal with, and so it moves at sometimes a painfully glacial pace. But in terms of securing the permits themselves, there's no major red flags, no major issues. It's just going through good old U.S. government bureaucracy to get there. Okay, great. And then, kind of along the same theme here, are there any, First Nations in the area, and, maybe talk about any local communities or any issues on that front?
So in Alaska, as a condition of statehood, after World War II, that Alaska had to settle all of their indigenous land claims. And so in 1971, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act was passed. and which basically allocated about 13% of the state to for-profit corporations. So in terms of that settlement, and it's different than a lot of my recent experiences for sure in British Columbia, is that you still do a consultation, you consult with local communities, tribal associations, and native corporations, but it's actually a lot of, and we'd sooner take the proactive role on the company side, but it's actually government that talks to a lot of the communities and nations rather than the mining company proponent. We are changing that, but the Hyder Tlingit, the Nisga'a, who are more on the Canadian side of the border, but their territory spans into Alaska, is that there is regular consultation and updates to what we are doing. So it's different. It's not the same level of risk for Canadian projects on unceded or unsettled territory, but nonetheless, mines don't go forward without the will of the people, and you need to actively and deeply and sincerely engage with communities, and particularly Aboriginal people that have been here for millennia more than we have.
Right. Okay. Perfect. We have a question here. Just for how far along will the current funding support exploration this year, or conversely, how soon will you have to undertake another financing?
Well, we want to get some discovery holes in there and then do a raise. So we did a couple million financing, a little more than that, that we closed in early summer. And what does Niblack need? Niblack needs a big program. Like, it needs a 20,000 meter program is really what will take it to that next level, to grow resources and to start launching on significant economic studies like PFS. And so, it's our intent, get some results out, really get our value up, do a lot more marketing here, and then look at another raise. And, I do see from one of the questions here, color as to intended spinning out of a NewCo. That is something that we've discussed with a lot of our shareholders. Originally, even some suggested, back when we picked up the Hyder properties, doing something new. No, it's, Blackwolf's working in Southeast Alaska. It should go in. If we have some success there, it's, hard. Funding one property is hard enough, let alone multiple. Is we would look at potentially spinning out some of those gold assets. So that's just something we're very open in terms of discussing. So is there a timeline for that? No. Let's see what these round results will show before we contemplate that, and then dividend it out to shareholders, or Blackwolf would be a major shareholder, or whatever combination our shareholders would like to see. So.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So turning, I guess, a bit more to the technical side, question here: what are the conditions of the underground workings at Niblack? Do you need to pump water out, and is there a need for a permit to do that?
So it's excellent ground there, and there's some of the better ground I've seen in my career, particularly through a lot of the felsic volcanic rocks, and particularly in the footwall. So all the underground's been rehabilitated. We put in lots of new ground support, we put in pipes and stuff. It does generate water. We have a full water treatment facility there. And so we do actually pump it a couple of times a month. It doesn't generate a huge amount of water, but we will fire up the pumps and put it into our settling ponds. And, we do have permits to do marine discharge or sprinkler discharge. So, and all those permits are in place.
Excellent. Okay. You mentioned a little bit earlier with the Hyder properties, some field work is ongoing as you're awaiting the permits there for drilling. Do you have everything that you need for drill targeting there? Or, are there any other kind of, geophysics or additional sampling that you need for additional targets, or are you kind of set to go once you get all the permits in place?
So if you go to our social media, it was outlined on one of the slides there that there's this big white vein that when I was in the chopper, I thought, is that snow? It's kind of weird. Late August, there's still snow in the trees, and it's like, no, it could even be barite. It's so white. We haven't made it down to that yet, and so like I cannot wait to see that. So getting down there, getting a little bit more geology. We know where we want to drill, which is basically setting up on top of the cliffs and drilling. You can swing holes in the third dimension to hit almost anywhere you want to go. So we sort of know where those sites are going to be, but based on what we see from doing a little bit more ground, and I won't sugarcoat, it's steep and it's coastal jungle. But as part of our team, Jody's crew there's experienced mountaineers, rock climbers, bush rats that aren't afraid of this type of stuff, and they work safely with ropes and stuff. But getting on that flat area up above would make it a heck of a lot easier to drill. The reason why nobody's done anything with it is because it is steep and covered with coastal rainforest jungle. That's where the opportunity presented. But we're comfortable working in this ground.
Right. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, I guess to expand on that a bit too is as far as drilling on Cantoo, we're comfortable to spot holes and start poking those tomorrow if we got our permits. That being said, yeah, there's a ton of other sampling and exploration we can do, not just on Cantoo, but the other properties as well. And we're working up a pipeline of known targets on those to build those to be drill ready. So in addition to our mapping and surface work, we've flown LiDAR, done big regional scale Worldview 3 remote sensing survey. All those results are just filtering in now. So on my end, it's a lot of fun because all the data's coming in and we're playing and arm waving and coming up with new targets left, right, and center.
Perfect. Okay. So another question here. You mentioned a little bit about, or you spoke about, potentially a spin out for some of the assets, if it ever made sense. Are you currently, looking at any other assets in the area that might be interesting as acquisitions, or, what's your view on that aspect of things?
Totally. As part of our job and leadership, we always have to be thinking about what's next and combos that would make sense. And so both on the bigger vision, other advanced assets that would have synergies with Niblack for sure. Other, maybe more on the exploration target side in around the Hyder area. Yeah, we have had those conversations. And so, something that would make sense for all shareholders is, as you probably all know, the valuations with juniors fluctuate wildly, and you can be talking, about a combo with one group, and the next day somebody whacks their bid and they just lost 30% of their value. But it's part of the job to always look at those accretive opportunities that would add value to our shareholders in a bigger way. Bigger companies, bigger projects are easier to fund than the smaller ones. So that is a motivator for us. And we've had over the past couple of years, and certainly over the past couple of months, those discussions. And as well as, there's what Jody and I are good at is actually, is generative work. We've got lots of other ideas too, in terms of what could be accretive either for a bigger picture hub and spoke or on the exploration side. But it's all a matter of funding as well too. So you can't grow too quickly too if you don't have that huge pool of capital behind you to execute on some of the new ideas. Like there's not a lot of competition in Alaska, particular. There's maybe a dozen active companies, including majors. You go across the Golden Triangle and there's dozens and dozens and dozens. So we always have to be thinking what's next.
Right, being very opportunistic under the right situation there. Okay.
Yeah.
We have a question here. Just somebody wants to hear more with respect to your endeavor to pursue a mill arrangement in the future.
So, well, there's a currently with the company, there's an arrangement in place with the Alaska. It's called the ADIA, Alaska Import and Development and Export Authority, or something. Anyways, it's a government organization that provides low interest loans to fund natural resource development and for projects. And an example, and it's a few decades ago now, but they helped fund the Red Dog, the largest zinc mine in the world, building a road and a port. So there's a arrangement in place for over 100 million at a low interest rate, something we wouldn't be able to get as a mining company. For sites in Alaska. There had been one that had been looked at on Gravina Island, which is located near Ketchikan, the largest community in the area. But we have looked at, there's some sites. There's a site we have that we've been looking at for a while that has its permits in Canada. And marine transports is it's way cheaper than trucking. I tell you that. It's something that was used historically. You see it all the time with aggregate. I'm here in Vancouver and watching the ships coming from Texada Island, limestone quarry, and pulp chips and all sorts of stuff, iron ore in the Great Lakes, is that, you doing that marine transport to a site that would be much cheaper to operate is what we see as a vision. Have we made progress? We've had lots of discussions, but there's certainly no deal in place yet, but we hope that there could be something soon.
Perfect. Okay. So with that, we are getting out of questions. So maybe I'll just, give you the final opportunity to kind of sum things up and, maybe provide a final pitch for our viewers today.
Well, we're really grateful for our shareholders' support, particularly through some challenging markets and waiting for permits, right? That's certainly, if you're an investor, you don't want to be hearing about why things have been taking a while, but it's you do what's in your control, and we believe that being able to make discoveries that in an area that has an excellent location such as Cantoo, next to a mine that's in construction by Ascot. We didn't talk too much about it, but there's a almost 3,000 ton per. That's a big mill that Ascot's putting in. It's almost the same size as Bruce Jack. So you make a discovery out there, you could have a ready place to be able to process it. There's no problem sending ore across the border. We're underpinned with excellent value at Niblack, where we'll be having updated resource estimates coming up, and tremendous exploration upside. And Jody and I we've worked well together in the past, where we've added a lot of value and made discoveries, and we're looking forward to doing it again. So please, more information, obviously go to the websites, follow our social media channels where we're pretty active, and certainly if there's any other questions, please reach out. Jody, final word to you.
Final word to me. Well, first off, thanks for sitting through the presentation and listening to us. And otherwise, stay tuned for drill permits, resource update, and also the results from this summer's program. So a lot of excitement to come down the line. And I saw one more question came in at the last minute there. So in terms of drilling at Cantoo, if we got our permits, we'd be targeting 1,500 to 2,000 meters as a start.
Perfect. Thanks for grabbing that last question, Jody. It's saved me from having to pose it to you. So with that, thank you very much to both Rob and Jody from Blackwolf Copper and Gold for taking the time to host the webinar today with Red Cloud Securities. And thank you to everybody on the line for tuning in with us.